Welcome back to Big Riff Energy. I'm going to blow through this one because it's a busy week. Kind of disheveled in here. I'm practicing for the shows we got coming up. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Tulsa, Dallas, Little Rock, with Wake and Pallbearer from Arkansas. Two of my favorite bands. Getting back to my roots. Tickets at spiritadrift.com/tour. We put a record out. It's out. It's out of my hands, finally. 3 years in the making, gone. Into the ether, into the hearts and minds of the general population. Thanks to everybody that's reached out and said something nice about it. Appreciate it. See the emails and the messages. I don't read comments, so fuck off if you're writing comments. You probably said something stupid and asinine, but the messages and emails are cool. Yeah, so I celebrated this weekend by turning my phone off and writing some more music and trying to listen to every William Friedkin Q&A that I could possibly find. I think I got through them finally, and now I'm on to the Quincy Jones book, which I'll talk about later. I'm going to start with some fan mail. And by the way, somebody did figure out the I Shall Return inside joke, but I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want to kill the mystique. I already gave away too much. A few of you got like really close and then just gave up, went the wrong way. But congrats to the person that got it. See you soon. And I'm going to shout out, people were sending real nice comments, a couple of reviews that they wrote and stuff like that. Shout out to Eric, Tony, Fast and Bulbous. Appreciate you, man. Renee had a good question, some nice comments. I'll get to that later. My man Tony, a different Tony, Tony S. Man, this fool said it's one of his Desert Island albums already. That's crazy to read shit like that. He said it ticks every box that he loves about the heavy metal pantheon. That's what we were trying to do, man. Thank you. And I bring these fans up because somebody asked me about reviews and stuff. I'll get to that later on the topic of fans versus critics. Matteo from Italy. What's up, man? Matteo says a bunch of nice stuff as well. I'm going to skip it. He loves the band and the podcast. Thank you, brother. First question. Do you think that passing from a situation where you were doing mayhem and sex, drug, and rock and roll life to a more disciplined daily routine, like physical training, eating well, no alcohol, did that let your musical creativity spread in a more powerful way? Do you think that giving yourself some rules helped your artistic side? As the ancient Romans used to say, mens sana and corpore sano. Somebody translate that. Let me translate that on the fly here. A sound mind and a sound body. Yeah. I'll come back to that because this is a multi-tiered question. Second question, do you deeply hate, as I do, people that make metal horns keeping their thumb out? I cannot stand those people. And in American Sign Language, Mateo, that means I love you. So they love you, man. So just next time you see them doing it, just try to remember that. But yeah, it's pretty goofy at a metal concert to see that. But they're saying I love you with either knowingly or unknowingly. So that's cool. Anyways, keep rocking, dude. Love your effort and your music. Spirit Adrift is one of my top metal bands with Metallica, Megadeth, etc. God damn. Yeah, those are the top ones, all right. Man, thanks. Cool. Cannot wait to see you live here in Italy. Yeah, dude, we love Italy. We love Italy. Can't wait to come back. We played Freak Out Club last time we were there, and it's like the CBGB of Italy. It was very cool. Shout out Daniele and his wife who hooked it up with that show, gave us a place to stay and everything. Great time. Mateo also is talking about Hellfest 2024. I'll get to that later. The first part of the question. Yeah, mayhem, sex, drugs, and rock and roll into a more disciplined daily routine. That's definitely... The thing is, when I was doing all that shit, I was pretty disciplined about all that too. I was like, had a regiment of chaos, like total chaos at all times. And still, being creative and stuff like that. But the answer is yeah. The answer is yes, totally. And I would not say that don't ever do drugs and don't ever do any of that. Because I think the best thing for creativity is opening yourself up to as much of life as you possibly can, whether that's experiencing art and music or experiencing destitute poverty, or the opposite, or everything in the middle, drugs, sobriety. This is probably strange for a sober guy to say, but I think that all of that stuff gave me experiences that helped me be a better artist now. But you reach a point of diminishing returns when you're doing all that stuff, and it happens really fast. It happens really fast. And you can look at every band, like Black Sabbath, 1970 to 1975. That was their lifespan living that way, right? And everything that started happening after 1975 was, the downward trajectory was drastic and obvious. They might even say everything that happened after 73, because they thought the high point of the Ozzy years was Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. I think it's sabotage. But the point being, you have a very, very short lifespan when you're doing that. And you look at you can say, well, a guy like Lemmy or a guy like Keith Richards lived to be really old. And I don't know about Keith Richards, but in Lemmy's case, he was still making good music. But you should know, that guy was regimented when it came to his substance intake. It was like a very specific regiment and diet, So I think discipline is the most important thing. Not motivation, discipline. And man, it really just boils down to, I've always just wanted to feel okay. That's it. I've always wanted to feel good. And that stuff felt good for not a really long time, but it felt really good for a short amount of time. And then it stopped feeling good. And what I'm doing now feels good. I know that I reached a point that I was unable to do anything. I could barely even form like a coherent thought. So how are you going to write a song that is worth a damn in that state of mind? You can't, you can't. And once I stopped all that stuff, it was like like a dam broke open, and it feels like it still hasn't stopped. I've got stuff I'm working on right now that I really genuinely think's the coolest, heaviest, most exciting, badass stuff that I've ever written, So that dam is still flowing, that dam of creativity. And I had to get sober and get my shit together in order to reach a point where I was capable of writing anything worthwhile. So that's the answer right there. Yeah, sound mind and a sound body. I'm trying to master this shit at this point, I really enjoy getting better at writing songs. And I've, I will say to anybody out there, I think that everybody should have experiences that are psychedelic, whether you can induce that without drugs. That's probably a better option, I would say. But, if you're young and healthy and everything, I think it's important to experience that kind of stuff. I do. And I know that's weird coming from a sober person, but it's a good way to kill your ego. It's a good way to realize realize the stuff that most people care about doesn't matter at all. And the stuff that really matters, most people don't care about. That's a good way to practically and tangibly figure that out. But yeah, for right now at this point in my life, the discipline, the sobriety, healthy body, healthy mind, 100% has made me better at everything, for sure. Good question. Sorry, I'm trying to make this episode shorter and I'm fucking it up. Okay, next question. Renee. Renee said in a different email that most albums today are pointless, and that made me laugh. So thanks for that. Renee sort of blew my mind with this question. Is the end of the Enlightened Eternity album a connection to the beginning of Ghost at the Gallows? I don't know. Is it? I've been watching too many Friedkin Q&As, but really, I don't know. I never thought about that. And it depends on how you're asking the question, man. You can ask that question in a lot of different ways. In my life, yeah, 100%. Like the experience of making Enlightened in Eternity was a moment in my life. The songwriting process, the recording process, that's all. That record is a record of that period of my life. And in that sense, yeah, the end of every record is the beginning of the next record. I have these memories attached to writing and recording these songs that overlap from album to album. And it is literally like the story of my life unfolding with a soundtrack, and the soundtrack is these songs. But your question got me really thinking. And I don't want to tell people too much what to think or feel about these songs. That's up to you. That's the whole point, is like, they mean something to me. They might mean something else to you. And it's not I'm in no position to tell you solid answers on what any of this means, but your question is very thought-provoking and profound, and I love it, man. That's cool. Dude, I was legitimately like taken aback by that question. I read that one yesterday when I was going through my emails, and I kind of blew my mind, man. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. And, these albums I'm making, I hope that people can listen to them for 50 years. I mentioned last time, still talking about The Exorcist 50 years later. I'm going to talk about Quincy Jones and Thriller, and, the dude's 88 years old, and we're still talking about like all the stuff that he's made throughout the course of his life. And there's a reason for that. It's packed full of meaning and emotion and that sort of thing. Okay, Joseph from Rock and Load. This is where things are getting dangerous. I love the in-depth podcast about the writing process of the new album and the Friedkin episode. I want to say I'm shocked that as many people listen to or watch that William Friedkin episode. I'm impressed, man. I was, even as I was editing that, I was like, who the hell is going to make it through this one? But it's cool. I'm really impressed, and I'm happy that people were interested enough in that to listen to it. Okay. Joseph says, I recently had the privilege to review the new Spirit Adrift album. I've been a huge fan since the band started, and just wanted to let you know that the album is amazing. Thank you. I know you have a bit of a hatred for press and journalism, but I thought I would send you the link to my review if you ever wanted to see the impact the album has had on fans. Well, key word here, Joseph, is fan. Let me look again, but I don't think that you said critic once in that. And there it is. There's a difference, man. I'm going to talk about like the fans outside of, my own family and my own real close personal friends and the guys that are helping me make this music. The fans are the most important people in the world, not the critics, not agents, not managers, not people at the label, not rock stars who we hope take us on tour, or whatever, any of that bullshit. The fans are literally the only people that matter outside of the band and our close inner circle. Like, that's it. You guys are the only people that matter, and you matter a lot. The critics don't mean jack shit to anybody, and they never have. And all right, I'm going to say some stuff. Joseph, you gave us a 10 out of 10. So you're exempt from this. And I'll talk about my attitude towards criticism in general, because that's what it is. It's criticism. And look that up in the dictionary. There's a difference between a fan of a band who loves what they made, or like a painter or whatever. There's a difference between a fan wanting to write about it because this person loves to write and they love to write about music or painting, and that's like one of their passions, right? That's different than a person who is put in a situation, either they've, like, it's a self-imposed situation, or it's like an outlet that they work for has imposed like a certain amount of a quota for like reviews or whatever. So there's a situation that'll either be internally or externally placed upon this person. where they have to listen to a certain amount of records in a certain given amount of time, and they're writing furiously, and there might be like 5 or 6 different people vying for the review in this outlet, whether it's a magazine or a website or whatever. So it's like there's this whole other energy to that experience, and it's always kind of been that way. There's websites and outlets out there that give everything a 7 or an 8. You're wasting your time. You're wasting our time. It's, I would rather somebody give my record a 0 and it be a well-written review using some accurate vocabulary to describe the substance of the music, or, the theoretical stuff at play, like the actual music theory. I think the vast majority of music critics don't even have the vocabulary to describe music. They use like metaphorical language, which is fine, and like imagery. They compare shit to sunsets or like dark caverns or glistening fucking raindrops or something. But like, where is the vocabulary dealing with the actual playing and time signatures and major or minor keys, or if somebody gave our record a 0 and was like, these minor third harmonies are getting really redundant. This fucking guy, every song has a minor third harmony in it. Or, this 5th string A minor pedal riff. When the fuck are these guys going to stop doing that, right? If somebody wrote a review like that and gave the record a 0, I would feel fine. I would be like, they would have my respect, honestly. If you give us a 10, you have my respect too. And I actually agree with the 10. And that might sound arrogant, but let me tell you why. There's 2 different ways of looking at your experience with art, I guess. And maybe people that don't create music or art or something, maybe I'm like having a hard time getting outside of my own paradigm because I write songs and stuff like that. So when I listen to music, I'm kind of doing it in 2 ways. Did they accomplish what they wanted to accomplish? That's A, right? B, do I like it? And a lot of times the answer to B will be no, I don't like this shit. A lot of Quincy Jones music, I'm not going to sit there and listen to it. But the answer to A, did he accomplish what he was trying to accomplish? Like, if the answer is yes, you have to give it a 10 out of 10 or a 5 out of 5, or what some of these dipshits in Europe used 17 out of 17 or whatever, 13 out of, I don't know. What the fuck is that? That makes no sense at all. I don't know if that's like metric system or what, but I don't think most critics are capable of analyzing albums that way. I think they're only capable of looking at it through their own limited lens. And a lot of times, like I said, they're under some sort of obligation to be listening to it. And I'm making records that I want people to be listening to for 100 years. And people, one day after it comes out, will say, this is the best Spirit Adrift album ever made. I would personally agree with that. I was there for the making of it, and that's why. And I think you have an easier time on day one determining that for yourself than you do saying, this is the worst Spirit Adrift album. I remember hearing Black Sabbath Sabotage for the first time, saying that's the best Black Sabbath album. That's the best record, period. I think you can sort of feel that the first or second time you listen to something. But to say, this is the worst Spirit Adrift album, you just listen to it for a day. How many times could you possibly listen to it in one day? When the other records, some of them have been out for whatever, 7 years or whatever it is, 6 years. So it's just foolish. It doesn't make any sense to compare and contrast or to give scores or judgments. This is not middle school. the people making music, like A, B, C, 10 out of 10, 15 out of 17, doesn't apply to something like music. It doesn't make any fucking sense. It's like too complete. That sort of rigid, numerical, quantified judgment has nothing to do with art or creativity at all. I don't know who the first critic was, but if I could get a time machine, I would go back and blow their fucking brains out, probably. Tony Iommi, one of my favorite stories ever. He invited a shithead journalist to his wedding and took the guy up to the chapel wasn't going to let them party in the chapel after the wedding because, like, John Bonham was Tony Iommi's best man and stuff. The ministers were like, you guys aren't doing that. So they had rented out this, like, mansion or something, and Tony took the guy up to this mansion that they had rented specifically for the wedding. And this dude had kind of bashed Black Sabbath in the past for being these, like, street rat, talentless, dirty, poor, criminal element type guys. Tony Iommi, on his wedding day, takes a sack of shit up to this mansion, and the guy writes this piece about him. And the piece came out, and they see it, and he's like, Tony Iommi's a poser. He's not even really a street kid. He has a mansion. He took me to his mansion. There was catering. He was in a suit. And the dudes in Black Sabbath were like, what the fuck? Like, the last thing he wrote about us, he said we're too poor. Now he's talking shit because Tony rented a mansion for his wedding. And so they acted like it, whatever. It's all good. The next time they were in town, they invited that guy to the show. And this dummy showed up backstage thinking, I'm going to hang out with Black Sabbath. And Tony Iommi just beat the living shit out of him, apparently, and to the point that he ran away crying. And that's one of my favorite stories ever. Who are the most famous critics? Lester Bangs, right? That dumbass, trashed Motorhead, Thin Lizzy, Black Sabbath, every cool band ever. Until he realized that those bands were, quickly becoming legends, and he retracted a lot of those opinions. And I'll never forget something that Mike from Inner Arma said to me. He said, dude, the only people that know who Lester Bangs is are fucking nerds like me and you. Everybody knows who Black Sabbath is. So there you go. Hope that answers your question. All right, Sebastien from France, bro. Good buddy, man. Good supporter of the band. He asks, what is Spirit Adrift development strategy? None. There is none. When will you plan a headline tour, including a European run? My bet/understanding is the following. Oh, you did a lot of support of great bands to get yourself better known. You did European festival tour, which will probably help for more notoriety overseas. You released a great album. So to me, you are now on the ramp, ready to skyrocket. Maybe a headline tour during springtime, and another festival run in August to discover new ones. See ya. P.S. My friend's name is Clement. Let me say, I struggle with French because you have to really say everything exactly right. I hope I say that right. Clement, right? I made him listen to the podcast. We had a good laugh listening to you and remembering the PLF conversation. That was so much fun, dude, in Paris. Hell yeah. Right after we saw Jim Morrison's grave and hopped the fence. I don't think Jim Morrison would want a fence around his grave. That's just me. Legitimately, there is no development strategy. I can't do that shit anymore. My tolerance for that kind of stuff is gone. So, if somebody else wants to do it, make money off of the band, let's go. And if they don't, I'm perfectly content to sit out here in the woods and keep writing heavy metal songs. I will say, you know what you're talking about with the hypothesis there. We are going to do the August Fest next year. That's what we're aiming for. I hesitate to say we are going to do anything because, as you mentioned, you said to me, you are now on the ramp ready to skyrocket. Seb, I have felt that way 100,000 times. And something always happens to fuck it up. And as a complete survival mechanism, I just have to stop thinking in those terms and stop, not totally stop participating in that aspect of the band, but at least limit my participation to the bare minimum, you know, because I can't control any of that stuff. I thought the man was going to skyrocket in 2020, and then a fucking bat fucked a cat, fucked a rat, and somebody ate it, and it didn't happen. So I can't stop people from fucking bats and cats and eating them, and I can't stop whatever else is coming. But I can write riffs and songs and lyrics that mean something to me. So that's what I'm going to keep doing. Dead air is great for radio, as they say. Okay, so this Quincy Jones book, it's called 12 Notes. He had a teacher in France. If you don't know who Quincy Jones is, go just type into Google Quincy Jones interview and read the first 3, and you will become a fan for life. He wrote this new book. He's got an autobiography, which I have not read. But this is called 12 Notes. He had a teacher in France that said, Quincy, God gave us 12 notes, and until God gives us a 13th note, I want you to learn and study and be completely familiar with what all the great musical minds have done with those 12 notes. What's their version of those 12 notes? What's the story that they told with those 12 notes? I thought that was cool. And that's how the chapters are laid out. It starts with A sharp, B, C. There is no B sharp if you're not a musical person. So I read it up to C sharp because I'm writing the whole next Spirit Adrift album in C sharp standard so far. And Tom is sending me some riffs that are really exciting in C sharp standard. So just to give you an idea of what he's talking about here, chapter A is recycle your pain into purpose. I talk about that a lot. A sharp, kind of corny. If you can see it, you can be it. B, you got to go to know, meaning get up off your ass and go experience life, kind of what I was talking about earlier. C, establish your guideposts. C sharp, always be prepared for a great opportunity. And it's laid out like that. It's just kind of, he's 88 years old. There's a lot of parallels between his experience and mine, which I was unaware of. And I think I'm always taken aback by how I'm attracted to people not knowing anything about their backstory really, and then coming to find out I'm probably attracted to them because we have really significant things in common. On the surface, Quincy Jones and I, if you're just looking at us, we don't have anything in common. But, skin color and age and race and all that kind of shit doesn't matter as much as our life experiences, and that stuff we have in common. He grew up without a mom, check, actually, strangely enough, got sober in 2015, check. I was just, even from the very beginning, I was kind of blown away by the similarities. And like Friedkin grew up in Chicago. They're only like a year apart in age, and grew up in a really, really rough part of Chicago at a really, really rough time. I've only read, the first 5 chapters, so I'm just going to stop there. But I love this guy. I read one interview with him where he just casually sort of dropped some knowledge on a songwriting / arranging / production technique that was the most monumental level up to my songwriting and arranging abilities and perspective. It was the single biggest leap in my abilities, was just some unhinged, off the cuff interview with this guy. I love Quincy Jones. It's very obvious to me, even just as far as I've gotten in the book so far, we are like soul brothers or cosmic siblings or something. Never met him, probably never will, but again, I know him. I'm gonna just read this part of it. He was talking about how important it's been for him to do repetitive daily affirmations throughout his whole life, because he talks about, the shit he's gone through, the trauma and the pain that he's gone through can destroy people. It does all the time. It probably destroys most people that experience that sort of stuff. So he has made a daily decision every single day of his life, a daily conscious decision to not let that pain destroy him, not destroy himself, and instead channel it into something that will connect with other people. I mean, it's all the same stuff I've been talking about, but he has this prayer, and I'm just going to read it because I thought it was cool. He says, he's 88 years old. He says it's changed over the years, but he says the Lord's Prayer. And then he says, I have conscious divine intelligence and I have direct knowledge of truth. I know because God is guiding me. God is guiding me with a divine will to help me continue to build a character that I can love, that I can respect, that I can believe in, and that I can live with eternally, so that I may always be there long and strong for my precious children and their precious children for whatever reason, and my precious friends and their precious children, and my beloved children all over the world. I've been at their side since the beginning because I'm really one of them, and I know what it feels like to be a street rat. I thank God for letting me be there for these kids and for having had mentors who believe in me. Having lost my mother at 7, I recognize that I came up like these kids and I will always be one of them. So allow me to guard and protect and improve my health, because without my health, nothing else matters. Crazy. I don't even connected to the fucking fan mail. I will develop my worth to the world and my God-given talents until I leave this planet. I promise you I will. He says that out loud every day. I think that's badass. If you got triggered by the God thing, you're a little bitch. Get over it. You substitute whatever words you want, right? It's beautiful. Beautiful. I'm going to talk a little bit about Thriller, but not much because I'm no expert. One of my core memories that is sort of always barely out of grasp, that I have forgotten completely about for large chunks of my life, but every once in a while I remember. When I was 4 years old, went to Disney World, Florida, and went into a 3D theater with not an IMAX, but like the old school blue and red 3D glasses, and saw the long form music video for Thriller with the Vincent Price intro and all that. Thus began my love of music and horror, right? I mean, it's like Friedkin talking about seeing a movie in the theater for the first time, or seeing Citizen Kane or whatever. It's that to me, I talk a lot about the influence of Jimi Hendrix, and Quincy actually says Hendrix was too intimidated to play on one of his sessions. If you want to understand what kind of person we're dealing with, what kind of musical mind we're dealing with in Quincy Jones, Hendrix was intimidated to play on a session. And I kind of believe it, honestly. But I talk about Hendrix being an influence. I talk about Skinner, Creedence, those being my early influences. But before all that, the first thing that had some sort of deep, powerful impact on my reptile brain to the point that I almost forgot the memory completely forever was Thriller, man. Quincy Jones, right? Michael Jackson was a twisted, fucked up, possible serial child molester, I guess probable, maybe. At best, he's a, crazy, fucked up, traumatized, way too famous, way too early type guy. That happens. And at worst, he's, like a serial child molester, which is about the worst thing you could be. That makes him fit right in the entertainment industry, so it is what it is. But all of that aside, Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson, Thriller, that was, that shit changed my life. And, I don't know, read some Quincy Jones interviews. This book's really cool so far. It's just comforting, it's like the Friedkin stuff I was talking about last episode. And shit, that's it, man. Let's see. There's like other content, album related. It's so funny that, I'll get, I'm referring to the track by track video that I just posted of the new album. There's also like a top 5 riff thing that I just played. Me and Tom showed our like solo shootout on Give Her to the River. And even though these are my songs, you know, I have to get copyright clearance from the label, and they've been killer about doing it. I mean, the guy does it like instantly. But it seems like even though these are my songs, and even though I get copyright clearance from the label, there's something in these social media algorithms that completely shuts down any content like that. It's very strange. And it's just another aspect of the corporate fucking Philip K. Dick style digital hellscape that we live in. But go check out the album related content on this channel, or not. I don't know. Maybe they won't even let you. The fucking CIA might show up at your door for watching content that I wrote, but that Sony Music owns the fucking copyright for. All right, we'll see you this weekend. Love you guys. Hell yeah.